Of course, it's Joel Samy and Natasha Srdoc. Good morning. Always good to visit with you guys. How are you?
A very good morning to you, Paul. It is truly a great honor to be back with you, and certainly greetings to you and the team.
The show, the program, as host and co-host of the RoundTable, the RoundTable, America's RoundTable, you guys are getting larger and larger and growing. My understanding is that beside the expansive network here at all the stations, you have 50 other stations, affiliates now, podcasts and everything else. So it continues to grow and the voice continues to resonate across America. So congratulations, guys.
Thank you so much indeed, Paul. It's a great honor to team up with SuperTalk Mississippi and in the engaged listeners in the South as well as the Midwest, and with the podcast through basically throughout the country and beyond as well. So we certainly have a great plug for SuperTalk Mississippi and all our programs.
Well, I mean, you got a pretty good co-host on there or a good guest every once in a while in a former governor, so he does a pretty good job, too.
Absolutely. It's a great honor to have Governor Phil Bryant, a true Mississippian, with us, and we appreciate his principal leadership on the vital topics of our day, and we certainly have a great many of them that we're addressing on this program, America's Roundtable, and through our efforts through the International Leaders Summit.
Before we get to the trip itself, this is a good point to put this in here. The Honorable Maurice McTigue is going to be joining as a regular. Tell me a little bit about that.
That's right. Maurice McTigue is a great statesman. He was a minister in cabinet member minister in New Zealand's reform government of 8 different ministries. And he reduced the size of the government in New Zealand by 66%, measured by number of employees. So when he got in power in New Zealand, actually, he said we had a problem in New Zealand. We had too much taxes, too much spending, and too little growth. So frankly, that's something where we are right now in the United States of America. So Maurice McTigue has been advising governors, members of Congress, as well as administration on how to reduce government spending, how to put pro-growth policies in place. And what he has done in New Zealand is tremendous. Basically, they privatized the postal services, which we've been discussing in America and not having courage to do it, to go through it. They've actually canceled agricultural subsidies overnight, whereby they saw that competition that this actually induced was amazing. From some 20 products of milk, they went to 2,000 products of milk in dairy industry, as an example. And they actually cut expenses tremendously by just doing, common sense policies.
Yeah. And he is going to be on as a regular also on a weekly basis?
Yes, he's going to be a regular contributor, as we lots to learn from New Zealand's example, and also what he did personally in reducing taxes, in balancing the budget, doing major reforms. Yeah.
It is kind of weird when you say that. One of the headlines here is Biden's chief of staff stuns critics as he dismisses supply chain crisis and surging inflation. Nobody in Washington, D.C. is talking about the gas prices. I can grant you this, that for some reason, and this happened the last time it went up during the Obama administration, it seems like our congressmen, the senators and representatives in Washington, D.C., are the last to begin to talk about this. When Trump was in office, the first time that gas started going up, he told them, stop it and stop it now. And we are at record levels, and it's eating away at the budget of every American, regardless of their income, because number one, it's everything from getting the product to market to actually buying it when it gets there. So your thoughts on that?
Right. So we do have a problem of inflation, basically. The prices are going up because of inflation. And that, as Milton Friedman said, and he was a great monetarist, he said inflation is a monetary problem. It's when too much money is chasing too few goods. So what we see, there's too much money in the economy, which tends to increase the pricing because there's not, that's just a monetary equation. And what happened is that we see these oil prices going up. So we do have this debate that we're having right now, I mean, administration is saying, is this transitory or it's permanent? Transitory would be if really pandemic-induced supply shortages would have this, practically supply is not getting to a higher demand because there's shortages, so the price will go up. That will be transitory if it's pandemic-induced and because of supply chain constraints. But if it is permanent, that is here to stay. And it looks like as the months go progressing, the prices are still keeping high. And I think that we have a problem of both sides. Basically, there's too much money in the economy that is pushing prices up. The prices are going up. And as you said, the wages are not keeping up so that people can have less money to spend. So we need to stop pumping money into the economy, stop spending government, taxpayers' money on different programs, as this 3.5 billion, social infrastructure, as they call it, a program they're trying to push. So reduce spending, reduce taxes, and get practically the businesses to gauge what the market needs. And then we would eventually reduce the prices of gas.
I played a cut yesterday from an economist who was giving a speech, and he said basically all the money that's ever been printed in the United States of America has been printed. No, I'm sorry, 40% of all the money that's ever been printed in America was printed in the last 12 to 15 months. That's a little bit scary thought.
It truly is. And when you think about our debt, Paul, the national debt is now at $28 trillion. So basically, we're not just only spending America's taxpayer money unwisely, but we're borrowing from the next generation and placing a huge burden on them. So fiscal responsibility is out of the window, and it's time for the American people to call their members of Congress and senators and say, listen, folks, we cannot continue to run America like this here. It is truly irresponsible for our generation to let this happen on our watch, and we've got to hold Congress accountable.
I played this cut a couple of days ago, and I know because people are really concerned about the gas prices, and here's the president.
Mr. President, what do you say to Americans who are worried about this rising prices right now?
I think you're going to hear some good news in the next 24 hours, and I think we'll be getting that under control.
And then I had to tell the people, I'm sorry, but that was May of this year that he said he was going to do this. So, I mean, the guy continues his string of failures. I want to ask you a little bit. You guys went to Dubai, and a little bit about that meeting. And also, to both of you, what's the perception of the new administration in places like Dubai?
Well, in regard to our visit to the Middle East, we stopped in Doha as well as Dubai, and it is a new day in the Gulf states. They are open for trade. They are engaging with business leaders from Israel. So we were there during that very historic week, the first year anniversary of when the Abraham Accords was signed at the White House through the leadership of President Donald Trump. And it was extraordinary to meet with business leaders, government leaders within the UAE. And what we have come to realize is the Abraham Accords is certainly a great success for the region. And as you asked the question about what do people, what are their thoughts about the Biden administration, I think the world sees it.
Can you hold that bit after the break? Because we want to hear this, and if you'll hold it after the break, we'll get back to that. Is Joel Samy and Natasha Srdoc, and we'll continue our conversations, their trip to their UAE trip. Let's get back to our interview with Joel Samy and also Natasha Srdoc and talk about this Dubai International Financial, or this trip they took. And guys, I was reading this. The Dubai International Financial Center is a financial free zone defined as an independent jurisdiction within the UAE, and I'm wondering, with all the new regulations and rules and regulations and some of the things that were deregulated by the Trump, reinstituted by the Biden administration, they probably have a more financial free zone than we do now here in this country. But explain that, and how does it matter to us here in this country?
Right. Actually, the people have different perception of Arab world and especially UAE. Mm-hmm. And once you're in Dubai, you see how open they are, how forward-looking they are in everything, in economy, in becoming a major hub for businesses as a logistical hub as well. Practically between Europe, Asia, and Africa, and also attracting a number of American companies. So the thing is that they are deregulating, allowing a free zone where there are no taxes. Actually, Dubai doesn't have any income tax, no corporate tax. So it's a magnet for companies. And it's an amazing thing that they established a parallel court, actually international court with international judges where they practice common law. So you are certain that if a company has any kind of a contract dispute or any other kind of a legal question, it can be resolved by international court, which is a parallel in UAE.
And we really believe that America has really a great opportunity through its business leaders to tap into 432 million individuals, consumers in the Arab world through the UAE. And we've had the privilege of working closely with Governor Phil Bryant a few years ago in having the Mississippi Development Agency join us all in Israel. And so we look forward to, in the days, weeks, months to come, to have actually working in partnership with Governor Phil Bryant, Natasha Srdoc, former Congressman Scott Taylor, and I will be leading a trade delegation comprised of business leaders across America to engage in UAE and looking at how America and America's businesses can be able to forge trade ties with the UAE and tapping into 432 million consumers. It's a new day in the Gulf states, a new day in the Arab world, and America truly has an opportunity to be at the table and engaging in these discussions.
Are they all in as far as the climate control and want to be part of the Paris goals and to get in on that? Or where do they stand as far as climate control is concerned?
Well, I think what we see is that the Biden administration is certainly strong-arming a lot of the countries in the Gulf states. The Gulf states are certainly realizing that they have their own challenges with perhaps oil reserves dwindling in the years to come. And that is one of the reasons that UAE has diversified its portfolio by becoming a hub for trade and commerce. They would like to actually grow crops there and be an agricultural, basically independently providing food to the region. So I think what we have seen is the Biden administration is certainly applying a lot of pressure. Some of these countries are certainly following through with some of the rhetoric. But I think countries like UAE and others are looking at how they can also diversify their energy platform. UAE is looking at hydrogen, something very innovative as well.
I was reading some of the text from Nancy Pelosi's visit with the Pope, and I think basically she said the Pope is not only there to meet the Paris goals, but we all want to beat them, and we would have over a 50% goal by 2030, a 100% goal by 2050 to meet the all-green objective that they have. But then the line is this. She says they are not responsible for many of the emissions, and she's talking about the people in other parts of the world, but they pay a big price in terms of rising sea levels, encroachment of deserts, melting of glaciers, drying up of rivers, and the rest that have an impact on their lives. It's a very big issue. So she's basically saying that we have to be the catalyst to send our money to some of these developing places to get their air, water clean, and I'm not sure how that flies in places like Dubai.
Right. I mean, it's a convoluted idea. Basically, we know that climate is changing. On the other side, we cannot survive without heating. I mean, we had such a bad episode of a winter time in Texas where really, I mean, natural resources of energy didn't really work out. Wind, solar. Basically,
it didn't work out. We're almost out of time. But here's the good news, though. we can continue this conversation this weekend because you can hear these guys and this type of energetic dialogue on America's Roundtable. SuperTalk Mississippi is where you will find it. Guys, thank you. Always enjoy the visit.
Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Have a great
Take
day. Bye-bye.
Joel Samy and Natasha Srdoc, and you will catch them this weekend on America.